Lindsay Smith with RealAgriculture. Joining me now is JP Gervais. He's the Chief Economist with Farm Credit Canada. JP, we're at the Future of Food event talking very much about the challenges facing agriculture right now. One of the things that we love to talk about here at RealAg as well is our productivity and the productivity gap. How big is this gap in Canada?
So everything is a matter of perspective, but we do have a gap, right? Because if you look at the rate of growth, we're more and more productive every year, no doubt. But the pace at which we're growing this productivity is slowing down, no doubt again, right? So whereas we can say that we're best in the world in terms of a lot of different things, whether it's food safety, quality of the products we grow on our farms and so forth, at the end of the day, our productivity growth is slowing down. And that gets us in a position that we're not yet just able to capture a lot of the opportunities that are in front of us in terms of growing our food production, meeting world food demand, and so forth. So there's really a gap in a sense that we're not growing our productivity fast enough because the world needs more of us, basically. It needs more of what we're growing on our farms. And to meet that future demand, we just need to be raising a little bit the pace at which we're being more productive.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, I always say there are three things, right? So I'm glad you asked. Three things. One of which is efficiency, right? So not even thinking of scale, just look at whatever you use on your farm and the inputs that you bring in, whether it's seed, chemicals, and so forth. And then can you just combine these inputs to actually produce as much of using fewer of these inputs, right? So there are always efficiency gains to look at in your farm. Sometimes they are small, but if you start to add them up, sometimes it can actually generate a bit of profit. So that's one thing. But the low-hanging fruits are gone, right? We're mostly very efficient on our farm. So the second thing is scale. What can we grow? Right? Can we bring technology? Can we bring in more land for sure, obviously, but then also more technology, whether it's equipment, whether it's how we feed animals and so forth, robotics, automation, and so forth, to actually scale up production and meet some of that growing demand that I was talking about. And then third, which is the really most significant source of productivity growth, is innovation. We need to innovate more. We need to bring more innovation. We need to look at the regulatory environment in Canada. By all accounts, right? If you look at the OECD, for example, our index of product market regulations to speak that how competitive we are with regards to innovation, we're 25th out of 38 at the OECD level. So that's not good enough. So we need to speed up innovation, and then you can do it upstream, when you think of the entire supply chain, and you can do it downstream as well. So you can bring more value add, which will benefit growers and farm operators as well. So its bottom line is efficiency, scale, and innovation that I would say would lift our productivity back to where it was.
I know that right now we're quite focused on what's happening with the U.S. and our relationship, our trading relationship there. It is still an incredibly important one. It will continue to be. But one of the key benefits to the U.S. market is there's rail, there's trucks. We don't have to worry about pushing things through port so much. Canada still has a logistics problem. So if we increase our productivity, is our infrastructure there to meet what we want to push forward?
Probably not, right? So we have to think about that. So first off, we don't want to give up on the U.S. It's such a big market for us next door. There's lots of positive about the U.S. despite all of the different dark clouds now that are above, the relationship and so forth. We don't want to give up on the U.S. But also, it's a bit of a wake-up call for us to think about other markets. Now, diversification is really easy to say, but in practice, it's really difficult. So for sure, when you think of our ability to actually export in other markets, I always we focus on trade agreements and stuff, and for sure that matters a great deal, but I always say it starts on our farms, right? The ability for us to be competitive on our farms, whether we, again, just raising productivity, scaling up, bringing more innovation and so forth, will have a major impact downstream in terms of our ability to sell in third markets. And the ability to do so is also to bring products to the border, ports, for example, and that's function of the infrastructure as well. So there's definitely something that we can do when it comes to infrastructure, just with the ability to lower the costs, focus what I call a relentless focus on being competitive, and that's part of the infrastructure is really part of that equation for sure.
How much of that then is an answer to what's happening with the uncertainty out of the U.S.? Is that a key part for you think, from an economic perspective of focusing on our own positives.
Absolutely. So you need to focus on what do we control, right? So we can actually look at our own regulatory environment, make sure that we bring more innovation, looking at different capital solutions. So it's all of us, right? It's not just farmers or farm operators and food processors that are actually carry this responsibility. It's the entire ecosystem that includes financial institutions like FCC. So that's one thing. Second thing is that absolutely you have to look at the span of different solutions, because it's not one thing that will make us successful, kind of decoupling a little bit from the United States, realizing that we'll never fully decouple. That's just too big of a market. But at the end of the day, the more we can do on our farm and in Canadian ag, the more we'll be able to grow outside of our own borders, right? And then getting into the third market. So to me, it's really just a system. We have to have a system kind of lens to all of this. It's not just the responsibility of one sector, but it's all of us, including government policy, to make sure that we have a regulatory environment that is conducive to investments and innovation.
All right, JP, thank you.
That's always a pleasure. Thanks.